Imagine walking into a grocery store, craving some margarine for your toast, only to realize selling yellow margarine is illegal. Sounds absurd, right? But for decades, Wisconsin actually banned the sale of artificially colored margarine. Why? The answer is crazier than you think. Stick around to find out how this law turned everyday shoppers into margarine smugglers. To understand this ban, we need to go back to the late 1800s. At the time, the dairy industry, especially in Wisconsin, was big business. Farmers were producing massive amounts of butter and margarine, which was cheaper and easier to produce, posed a major threat to their profits. But there was a problem. Margarine looked unappetizing. The original version was white and resembled lard, so manufacturers began adding yellow dye to make it look more like butter. And guess who hated that? Butter producers. The dairy lobby, especially in Wisconsin, fought back hard. In 1895, they succeeded in getting a law passed that outright banned the sale of yellow margarine. And they didn't stop there. Restaurants were required to post signs if they served margarine instead of butter. Would you have been able to tell the difference? Tell us in the comments. But here's where things get even wilder. People didn't just accept this ban. They found hilarious ways to get around it. Since selling yellow margarine was illegal, companies began selling colorless margarine with separate yellow dye packets. That's right, you had to mix your own margarine color at home. Imagine buying a tub of margarine and having to stir in the yellow like it's some kind of DIY science experiment. But it didn't stop there. People actually started smuggling margarine across state lines. That's right. Wisconsin residents would travel to neighboring states, like Illinois, to buy the real thing and sneak it back home. Some stores even had secret codes for selling margarine. Would you have broken the law for margarine? Tell us in the comments. So how did this ridiculous law finally end? Well, by the mid-20th century, public opinion had shifted. Dairy farmers were still powerful, but people were tired of the absurd margarine restrictions. In 1967, Wisconsin finally lifted the margarine ban, over 70 years after it was put in place. But even today, there are still leftovers from this era. For example, in Wisconsin, it's still technically illegal to serve margarine instead of butter in public institutions like schools and prisons, unless specifically requested. This law might seem silly, but it raises an interesting question. How much influence should industries have over food laws? From plant-based meat regulations to raw milk bans, governments are still making laws to protect certain industries over others. What do you think? Should food laws be driven by business interests or consumer choice? Should governments regulate food alternatives? Vote now. So, what do you think? Was this law protecting Wisconsin's dairy industry, or was it just too much government control? Let us know in the comments. And if you loved this crazy food history, check out our video on the weirdest food bans around the world. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.